Emerald ash borer has devastated ash trees in the United States, the eastern part in particular. It first appeared in 2002 in the Detroit area, probably arriving on cargo ships and ballast and wood materials that came from Asia. It is an insect native to Asia, and here in the United States, ash trees are very susceptible to the damage that the insects cause. The ash borer is a green metallic beetle that lays eggs on ash trees, and then the larvae burrow under the bark, and because of that damage, it kills the cells in the tree that carries fluid up and down the tree. Eventually, the tree starts to decline and most ash trees die. I happen to have an ash tree in my yard that I've been treating, and we're going to learn more about that with an arborist who's come today to treat my ash using an injection method.
So
what are we up to there?
21 and a half.
21, okay.
And that's going to tell us a couple of things. That's going to tell us how many injection sites and how to dose it.
Okay.
And the label of the product will tell us how to dose that size tree.
Great.
So.
And to be clear, this is chemical that is not available to homeowners, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I have to have a license.
Yep.
And take testing and
Yep.
have the license to actually purchase it. They call it restricted use pesticide versus general use pesticide. And typically something like a restricted use pesticide, with anything you're going to want to read the label really well.
Right.
But there are going to be some specific label requirements.
Yep.
Including PPE. It tells you, what you should be wearing to protect yourself from the product as well.
Right. And of course you have safety glasses and gloves on.
This product is toxic to bees, so I do try to do my best to keep it in the tree
In the
only.
tree. Yeah. Yeah.
That way we're not putting something into the environment that a bee could come into contact with and die. So trying to do our best to keep the environment clean of these chemicals, even though it is kind of difficult. But it's also one of the reasons why we have these technologies now.
Right.
Because we used to just, dump it in the soil every time.
Right.
Or spray it on the tree.
Yep.
And now we do have the technology to directly inject it into the tree.
Right. Yeah.
Keeping all of that in one place.
Yeah. And so my understanding then is when you soil drench any of your plants or flowers around will uptake that pesticide, and then if an insect comes to pollinate that plant, they potentially come in contact with that
They can,
pesticide.
and that's where timing really matters too.
Right.
A lot of times we'll do this type of work, or I'm sorry, not injection work, but drench work in the fall. That way we're not doing it too early of spring.
The
if we do it
flowers
too
are
early in spring,
gone pretty much,
Yeah, and a lot of those labels will say that too. They'll say, do not apply this while things are in bloom.
In flower.
This is toxic to bees. So
Yep.
we kind of have to balance a few different factors.
Yeah.
We have to balance the flowering, but we also have to balance the timing of the emergence of the pest as well.
Yep.
So right now we're at a point where we're past that flowering, which is ideal. We're probably right on the money for emergence. I think I might be a week late, but we're talking getting them right when they start to emerge.
Yeah.
And the larva that they're going to lay is typically what we're actually targeting is the larva.
The larva, right.
And that is a really difficult part about my job, is I really have to time the life cycle of these insects to understand when they're most vulnerable to treatment.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because if I, a good example is gypsy moth.
Oh.
Or sorry, spongy moth.
Spongy moth. Spongy moth.
New name.
Yes.
That is a good example where you cannot treat it with an injection if it's too late in the year. If they're too large, they're not going to be feeding for long enough for the product to actually work its way into the leaves.
Into the leaves, and then the timing's off. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Now this one, we're trying to get it into the cambium layer.
Right, because that's where the larvae feed.
That's where they're chewing.
Right.
So, knowing the insect life cycle, how it feeds, how it reproduces, and when it does all that.
Yeah, to time
And then I have to know which chemical or what product can actually treat it at that stage.
At the right time.
And then you got to get it at the right time.
Yeah.
So my job is difficult in some aspects where, there's been times where I've missed the window on things too. So it's easy to happen, unfortunately. I just kind of take a look at the tree and visually, I know I'm doing 2 setups, so I just kind of visually split it in half based on our root flares. Because really where I'm injecting, I want to inject into these root flares down here if I can, within 12 inches of the ground. If I inject up here, I might be getting less of the vascular system. It's a little bit more concentrated here as it starts to work out into their individual vessels. So I like to try to go for these root flares if possible.
Yeah. And to explain for viewers, the root flare is the portion of the base of the trunk where it literally flares out down where the roots then are extending down into the ground.
Yep, and we want those all to go outward instead of around the tree.
Right.
Because then we can choke the tree out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see in it or not, but there is a very tiny gray ring inside there. That's the cambium. So everything this way of it is going to be phloem. Everything inside of that ring is xylem.
Xylem, and those are the 2 types of vessels that carry fluid up and down the tree, right?
Correct. Yep. Our phloem carries sugar and water up and down. Our xylem only goes up one way, and that's water and nutrients going up. That's cool, you could actually see it. I'm glad you could.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's difficult to see, so. And I do see that I'm getting good solid wood. You definitely do not want to ever inject into decaying wood. It won't work.
Yep. So I see each of those have it looks like little valves on them, right?
They do.
Okay.
So now that my whole system is set and pressurized, essentially I go through and I open up all the valves and I open up the system and the injection should begin. And ideally, if I pressurized it right, no air would be in the system at all.
Yep.
Okay, so it's running. And what I do is I tend to look at each injection port to make sure nothing is leaking out of it. Because that can happen if I drilled it a little bit too wonky, made the hole too big.
Yep.
Or if I drilled into decayed wood or bad wood, or if there was a wound above my injection port, we'd potentially be getting products squirting out of there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So this is great to see everything cleanly working. I can see it.
The fluid in the tank has gone down, so we know it's going into the tree.
Yeah. So yeah, this is going very well. And then you can actually see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Start to finish.
Yeah. Yep.
And then ideally I wouldn't let air into the port, so I do try to kind of watch it and shut it off when it does get to that point.
Okay, yeah, it's like
a little hard sometimes when they're all happening at once, but if you let it go too long, you will get some products start to push out just because of that air pushing in. All right, last one.
If you're curious as to whether or not you have an ash tree on your property or in your yard and want to know how to identify it, here's some tips. Look for this finely intertwined patterned gray bark. And ash trees are one of the few trees in the woods that have opposite branching. That means off of a main branch, the smaller branches come out exactly opposite each other. Ash trees also have compound leaves, meaning each leaf is made up of many smaller leaflets. The ports that Emma put in the root flare of this ash tree will actually stay in the tree, and the tree will heal over them. Emma says occasionally the ash tree pushes them out. Injection treatments to help prevent damage from emerald ash borers occurs every 2 to 3 years, and that depends on how much pressure the beetle is putting on in the region affecting all of our ash trees. Hopefully, this ash tree will live many more happy years. Remember, you can find your own outdoor elements when you visit area parks and natural areas. We'll see you soon.